Okay. So therefore, Bishvil says, Zachal Giloim Nailim Biyosim. And therefore, because he decided to honor this level of godliness with dancing, because he was in front of such a high level of godliness, he went beyond himself and sort of veered off the level of normalcy in order to express his intense emotions for God beyond the level in a realm of shtus. Therefore, he merited Legiloim Nailim Biyosef. He merited amazing high levels of revelation, which was the Afsi Kamuna Denora, which means that he was separated by a pillar of fire between him and the rest of the world, indicating that he was totally on another level.
He was totally doing a mitzvah too.
It's a mitzvah, but this level of doing a mitzvah, is the conduct of acting crazy in front of a chassan and kala. We learn from him. Yeah. So, but the mitzvah of being sameach a chassan and kala is to come over and say mazel tov and give them a gift. You know what I'm saying? That's al pi seder hishtalshalu, how you're being sameach. But the idea of a Talmud Chacham, come over and start. Can you imagine actually? Think about the greatest Talmud Chacham you know, the oldest, wisest man with a big beard, the Rebbe, right? Saba. Can you imagine the Rebbe comes to a wedding and starts dancing and juggling? Like it's crazy, basically, right? I mean, it's awesome, and you want to see such a thing, but it's the idea of shtus to kedusha. These were tzaddikim, the highest level. Yehuda Bar Eloi. You can go see him anytime. He's just waiting for you to go visit.
He's buried on the way to AZT.
Yeah. Okay. It says on his grave, like one of the quotes that is famous for, "Ein bir chametz el sreifa." There's a few different opinions how to destroy your chametz, and his opinion is the only way to destroy your chametz is to burn it. So of course, chametz is the idea of arrogance and so forth. So he's like a harsh one. The only thing you can do is just destroy it, take it out of the world. You can't scatter it to the wind. You can't flush it, because it still exists. Yet the only way to deal with your chametz is to burn it. So he's our man up here. Okay. Listen, we do burn the chametz, but I don't think that's the only permissible way to getting rid of it. Okay. So, this is a revelation of light openly mamish. It was a pillar of fire, right? This is not just a regular, he was seeing lights. There was a pillar of fire that came into the world. He wasn't living in the times that all the way back when. He was living in a time, and all of a sudden a pillar of fire came around his grave. So it was an open revelation of God. And to explain the matter, the or ein sof the infinite light, no thought can grasp it at all. Right? It cannot be grasped by thought, which means the vessel of the mind is not a fit vessel to hold on to the infinite light. You cannot understand it, because understanding means you grasp. You put your hands around something, so you can also put your mind around something. And since the Orient Sof is infinite, you cannot put your mind around it. It cannot be grasped by the mind. It's beyond the realm of grasp. It says in Tanya, a mashal of the nature that just like it would be a silly thing to tell a person to grab a rock, to grab a thought with their hands, right? You can't grab a thought with your hands. Why? Because your hands do not have the right material to grab thoughts. Your mind has the right material to grab thoughts. So too, you can't grab God with your mind, because your mind is not the right vessel to hold godliness. It doesn't hold godliness. You can't hold God with a mind. Doesn't get, and that's what it means. There's no thought can grasp it at all. Not because it's so deep of a thought that you just can't. You're not that smart. It's because the vessel of thought, like trying to hold a thought with your hands, it doesn't do that, right? It doesn't hold God with your mind. And this is the idea that true godliness is simply beyond comprehension. It's beyond grasp. To kol hasaga hinegam hayoser nailis, that any grasping, any understanding, even the highest form of understanding that could ever possibly be, which is, let's say, chokhmah vatzilus, right? The pinnacle vessel of grasping, harehu begetter hasaga al kopana. it's still in the realm of grasp. It's still called grabbing something. But something which is simply beyond the realm of being grasped, so it cannot be held on to with grasping at all. As it says over there in the Tanya. So regarding Hashem, who is by definition above intellect and understanding, because he's Or Ein Sof, which is completely beyond any limitations, and no thought by definition can grasp him at all. Hakol kipsim etzlo. Everybody's a fool by him. Yisbarek. Because you can't ever get it. So you're always in a realm where you just are like a rock. You don't understand what he is because you don't have the vessels. The highest thing we have to perceive something is our mind. And our mind does not cut it when it comes to grasping God. So every single creation and every single world is just a complete idiot by Hashem. He's a dummy. As it says in Tehillim, it says, I am a fool and I don't know. Animals. I'm like an animal before you. You're trying to explain a complicated philosophical concept to an ox. You say, come on, don't you get it? You know? Wake up! This is the story. So here's an interesting thing though. The pasuk continues and says, but I am continuously with you. So it says, I am a fool and I don't know anything and I'm an animal with you. And then the right next sentence says, the same sentence, the next end of the sentence is, and I'm continuously with you. What's the meaning? Meaning to say that the fact that I am a fool and an animal, that makes me continuously with you. Why? Because in order to reach the essence of Hashem, in other words, it's not saying merely that I am lowly and I'm an animal before you and I don't understand. It's telling you in a positive sense that be an animal before Hashem. In other words, be shtusi. Not in a negative sense, but don't try to approach your God by thinking you're going to understand Him. Rather, since you're anyway never going to be able to understand Him, approach Him right away in a way which is beyond understanding. Don't deal with Him in a way where you're going to figure Him out. You know? Be with Hashem in a way which is beyond das, which is not dealing with the realm of understanding. And if you do so, you will be continuously with Him. It's not that you can never be with Him and can never connect to Him. It's just you can never connect to Him with understanding. But if you go and deal with Hashem by juggling and just kind of freaking out and being animalistic to a certain degree in the realm of Kedusha, that's how you will be with Him. You will be continuously with Him because He will dwell with you, so long as you're not putting this film of intellect between you and Him. Because that won't do it.
Earlier it was talking about doing,
right,
not doing, and now it's talking about perfection beyond das.
So that's a great point. That's a great point. But look at it like this: we said there's a skafia and hapcha. So in general, there's a kind of stages. The first thing we said in the beginning of the mimer is that you have to convince your animal soul that God is the way to go. And that's a totally intellectual process. You got to sit and learn Chassidus and explain to him that there's a God and your whole existence is being enlivened by godliness and you yourself don't want to disconnect. As we said, like a domesticated animal is happier than a wild animal. Come on, let's get domesticated ourselves. And so forth. So it starts off by sort of bringing your animal out of his animal state and trying to use the peak of your animal's abilities to intellectually connect to the Torah. But then, so you're doing the Torah and mitzvahs, good. But if you think by connecting to the Torah and mitzvahs in a way of intellect, you're going to connect to the essence of Hashem, that's what Yehuda Bar Ilai comes to teach us. That that connects you to the aspect of Hashem which contracts itself into a limited, graspable form, which is the mamale light. So yes, that's better than being an animal. So you start with intellect. But if you want to connect to beyond the mamali light, so you've got to take your godly soul itself to another level, and that's why it said, Rov tevuas b'koach shor. That's why we want the animal, because ultimately, the animal, when we fix it and get it sort of intellectually to go along, and then we start to serve on a level higher than intellect, it's the animal itself that enables us to dance and sing at a wedding like that. So you can utilize your animal in a way of shtus to kedusha. You know, there's the animal. That's the idea. There's the animal below das, and then there's the higher animal, behema rabba. It's called the great animal, which means you also need your animal for that, because the godly soul in its own right does not actually have that possibility. The godly soul is an intellectual, essential vessel. The godly soul is called man. Man is defined by his intellect. The animal soul is an animal. So that's why your godly soul, it's worth it for your godly soul to rush down into this world, get the animal, convince it intellectually it's not supposed to do that, and then utilize its animal powers to take the godly soul where it cannot go, which is to serve Hashem with a wildness of holiness, as opposed to a straight down the line, I get it, I get it, I get it. Because wherever your soul is holding in all the spiritual realms, it defines itself by its grasp of God. Are you a soul which is basking in the Garden of Eden of Bria or Yetzirah? Or wherever you are, you're defined by how much you grasp Hashem. So you go up a level, so you grasp a little bit more, you grasp a little more. However, you're going to go up and grasp, great. You're going to go to the heights of grasping, you're still only dealing with mamale light, which by definition is contracted. So if you want to access the essential light, so you need your animal for that. And that's why the soul comes plummeting all the way down to this world to get himself a hold of an animal. Right? It's just that it can cover you over, so you have to be careful with this thing. But this animal suit, it's the best thing that ever happened to us. Okay, we'll hold here.